Okay, let's go further down, get more data. Okay, gamma aware results. How accurate are the SPY tomorrow algorithms? And this is honestly one of my favorite activities, going through the data and finding maybe new things that I had not seen before. As we get more data, we obviously can see a bigger picture. And I'm using data right now that goes back to, let's see, the beginning, mid-November. That's where all of this data that we're using right now is collected in a form that can be compared and contrast. So what we'll do is we download right here, and this is found at the spytomorrow.com website for members. They can download this data. We're going to explore what are the most accurate algorithms. We're going to talk about the switch and gamma regime and how that developed over time, because right now our system uses a gamma regime focused method. I'll explain all that as we get into it. Now, you do have access to some data for SPY Tomorrow on the front page of SPY Tomorrow. This is free, and it's found at the very bottom right here, the last section of the front page. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is a signal at 4 o'clock Eastern Time will show up, and it'll give you either an up, down, or negative pressure signal. But how well does that work? Well, for today, June 8th, we had a high pressure signal, and we started off, there we go. We start off up. So we're overnight swing traders. So we buy at the end of the trading day, and our pressure signals our measure at the end of the trading day. So you can point your trade either up, down, or neutral, not at all, and then sell in the morning. And we're trading the overnight gap, which is a tradable opportunity. And what we do is we give ourselves the first half hour of the trading day to meet our goal. And there are times in which it does start up and goes down, and then there are times where it starts down and goes up. And those are actually days in which, honestly, both directions are considered correct. And that happens about a third of the time. And the other 2/3 of the time, it's either directly up or down. So we'll measure some of these algorithms to see, well, do they work without the -2, because some don't. Some that -2 +2, and that's what I call it. That's my shorthand to say, hey, it's when I say -2, that means it started down and went up. And if I say 2 in my results column, it means it started up and went down. That's my shorthand, but if I mention it again, now you know what I'm talking about. And we can go through. Now, neutral days, that is a day in which these numbers were between -0.75 and 0.75. And I'm considering adjusting that in the future, but we can talk about that a little bit more in the video. But you can see here, that was down day for Friday. And yes, it was a down day. Let's see. And this was a down day too. And that was this was the big down day. We have an officially neutral for the big down day on Friday, June 5th. However, members saw that it was actually right on the edge. It was like 74 point something negative. So members could see that it was actually a negative day. Now, with the neutral, I probably would have, been very cautious personally. Again, down. Down. So I'm going to go all the way. Now, let me show you one. Here's one. This is an example of that area where, okay, this one's a little bit of a gray area. Oh, not that one. That was set up and it was up. Maybe it's June 1st. Yeah, so here we went up, and so maybe you would have broken even. But we did hit the mark before that time. Then it went back down, but then it went up solid, I think, for much of that day, as I recall. But this would have been counted as correct, so at least you know how that works. But sometimes it really is just, it's down a little bit, started down, then went up. The pressure took over. So we have to have a consistent system to measure these things, and at least this way you know how it is measured. Usually it's a lot more clear than that. And honestly, we had a good run so far. These are all correct all the way through to the 20th. This, where it's almost a neutral, but it was a wrong day. And I think that there was some news overnight that came about. Let's take a look what happened. So the market ended up on the positive side, and that's going to happen because so many things can happen overnight, such as earnings reports after the bell, government reports before the opening the next day. Those are things that we need to keep an eye on because that can switch the mood of the market. But let's get into what has actually happened since November with our various algorithms and how we figure out which algorithms we're going to use to present to the public as the up, down, and neutral signal. So let me show you the data we're downloading here. And as you can see here, here's the trading day. So this was actually taken on the 5th, the Friday. So that Friday, Gamma was short because we had that big down day and we had higher volatility. It certainly went up. And here we have all the different algorithms, and they're all reading different things and approach that pressure at the end of the trading day differently. Now, currently, there are 3 that we use regularly. So we use, in positive gamma, we use the CV8 because it's proven itself. We have the 5B, and that is right here. And we have the CV LT 15.5 comparison, which was also up. All those were up. Comparing the short, although it was in short gamma, we had a big down day. Our key ones were up. So when gamma is short, we use what we refer to as the CV5B, which is right here again. And there it is. This is the number that you would see right here on our dashboard. Right here. This is a tool that's working pretty well, but I played with it. It's in beta, and so sometimes I'm adjusting it and sometimes I don't make really good decisions. But I think someday this ultimately may be the main signal, but that's down the road. But we could also see at the time we had extreme fear, and we could see that the volatility had gone up, but here we are saying bullish for Monday. It was a risk that we got rewarded for. So back to the data. So we download this CSV file to pull into, say, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, whichever AI you wish, if you want to do it that way. And you can compare. Some of these files, there's a results line or column where you can plug in the results yourself, because you may decide, for example, that for your style of trading, the first hour is right for you. And so you can develop your own system, or maybe just purely the open is how you judge. We judge here based off of the 10 within the first half hour, but there are a lot of ways you can go about it, and you can also see what has happened a little further, because maybe, for example, that it was negative, we had a positive reading, but it was negative, and then it just maybe went positive right here. And so maybe you'll want to count that as an opportunity. Again, how you judge these things is up to you. We're just trying to find methods in which we can take advantage of what is often a nice move overnight with the overnight gap. So I keep a running pre-filled results column. I just add, like at the end of the week or every 2 weeks, add up those additional 10, 5, 10 different columns. And so I keep it running so I don't have to redo that every single time, and then I can just upload. This says to 6.5, but actually it's all the way to 6.8. So my next move is I have a text file, and it has a already created prompt. And what I did a while ago is I kept asking for information, and then I asked the AI, asked ChatGPT, based on what we've been doing, give me a prompt that'll allow me to do the same thing over and over again consistently. And I made a little adjustments when I've had some other queries or information that I wanted in each report. But we'll get an initial report, and then we will kind of dig in a little further. So let's see how accurate the various algorithms are. So I'll cut and paste this Paste it here. Do thinking. Don't need to go to Pro for this. And here we go. I'll pause now, and I'll pause and I'll edit to make this easier so you don't have to sit through everything. So here we are, and there's something to note here. Between February 28th and April 15th, I call it the war window, and that's when we had the beginning of the war. And quite honestly, the algorithms just got crushed during that time because overnight, things changed. The war, winds of war. I mean, it just was a tough time, and that was a lesson learned. Funny enough, I implemented the new algorithm that we have data back to November for, but I didn't implement it until maybe 3 weeks before, 2 or 3 weeks before the war, of course, right? And I'm watching it, and it's like mid-February. These algorithms are doing amazing. I'm switching it over to the regime adjustment method, which I'll show you in a moment, because these numbers down here are averages. So we'll have to be clear about that, and I'll explain that. And so, I get it out there. I'm excited because it was doing so well, and you'll see how well it was doing in a few moments. And then, of course, the war starts and just crushes everything. So, I mean, that's the way it goes. That's this game. As you can see here, the gamma where long gamma, we use the CV8, short gamma, like we just talked about, CV5B. And then this is something I kind of added during the war or after the wartime, was to find the algorithm that was doing well when IV increased, and also neutral days and so forth. So it turns out maybe neutral days aren't the best way to approach it in terms of the minus, say the number, like the -7.5 and the +7.5. I mean, these are the things that we're learning. I've been doing this 6 years, and it sounds like, wow, why do you keep doing this? And the point being is that I keep learning new things and improving it all the time. Where we were 3 years ago is not where we are today. Where were 2 years ago, not where we are today. We continuously have updated and learned. But the problem is we need half a year's worth of data to actually make good decisions. And so if you think about it, if you break it down to half a year and a year, that's really just data set. So that's why it really does take so long. And you say, well, why don't you just back test? It's just not that easy with the way these algorithms work. Unfortunately, I wish I could. Okay, so as you can see, the one that we use for neutral, this is based off, it has the most data, 130 in the number of the number of times it was used, and then the number of times being correct. So that's 70%, just under 70% correct, 69%. And as you can see, it's like, well, that's not what you were talking about. Here's CV5B, and that's about the same. So these are about the same percentage, 70% correct. Now, let's just be straight up. That's pretty good, but it gets better. So you can start to see that some of them just start to fade. They're better than average, but that may also account for the 2 minus 2. Okay, let's go further down, get more data. Okay, gamma aware results. So this is what we're using now, and it continues to work. And I'm going to show you how we know it's not just this average that seems to be kind of working, because it happens to be an average. So we're going to do a few things here. First of all, let's look at the overall. The overall is near 80%. Okay? Now, what does that mean? That means when the gamma is negative, we use the CV5B. And when the gamma is positive, we use the CV8, and then neutral and so forth is the what do we have? The CV3, it's up here. There it is, CVLT right there. So what we do is it switches. It's automated. So during wartime, that scenario was basically 50-50, right? Outside of wartime, it's 86. Now, this 86.9% are the kind of numbers I was seeing before the war. And so again, ready to launch. And then a couple weeks later, the war starts and, just as you can see, flattens us. So that's why I take that out. And we can use the average. And over time, this war number will fade and this number will continue to go up overall with 115 trades. And the reason it's 115 is because I think there are some dates in which maybe neutrals taken out. And the reason it's 15 based on the back and forth is sometimes it takes out inconclusive combinations and so forth. So it's all clean data that's being shown. And so here we are with the trend. And now we want to ask some other questions. So here are the results. Again, the positive gamma, negative gamma, the algorithm we're using. And then, yeah, looks like it. It did skip some, I would assume about 15. But let's just go with this for now. Maybe we'll question it later. So pre-war group, here you could see, 85% correct, then 100% correct through February 6th. So look at this. I mean, what would you be thinking? 37 out of 40 correct. I need to share it with people, right? So I did. And then we continued on, was going well, and then bam, about 6 weeks of 50%. And so, I mean, what a downer was that? And so then we go a little bit, not really post-war, but it was still going on, but there was still a number of days in which, a political comment or something happened or someone fired at somebody. And so we had some rough nights, but it was still 70%. And now we've moved on further. We're in the last 12 or so days and we're at 91%. So you can see that this method, and this is the important part, a good indicator that this was just an average random scenario was if these numbers down here after the war were much lower and were not consistent with what we were seeing pre-war. So the war in many ways was just a great exercise to challenge this approach because this is a new approach to the algorithms. In the past, what I was doing was maybe picking the best 2 out of 3. And actually, if you use the best 2 out of 3 here, like that's positive, positive, and negative, and so we would go positive, that is the way I was doing it in the past, which seemed logical. But this actually drops everything down to about 69, 70% correct again. And so it's not the best way to go. Using the switch was very helpful. But I would then just use one algorithm and apply the switch. And the switch, so if I wasn't always using the gamma switch, there are a number of different switches, but I use a different switch that I identified at the time that I really liked. And then I would apply it. So if this was positive, but the switch was negative, then this would turn negative. If this was positive, the switch was negative, this would be a negative. And if it was a negative and we're a negative, then that would make it positive, if you followed me on that. So that's how this all goes. Let's see. Summary, pre-war total, 92%. Look at that. Wartime, again, 50%. Post-war total, and then non-war overall, 77%. And that includes wartime. So it's near 80. So as we move further along, we're showing that this should continue. There's no guarantee. Who knows what can happen? Again, it does show the effect of overnight political changes, and that's where you have to be defensive. That's where the hedging, that's where position sizing, that's where all of that plays a role. And there are many different ways to trade overnight. And I like to share different ways to go about this on my YouTube channel. But again, if you go back a few years in some of my videos where a big change, for example, if I said, I would say, hey, do the hedge, the 2-to-1 options ratio. That was a big video for me, and a lot of people came to Spy Tomorrow from that video and those videos, and that's fine. But we eventually realized through experience, because when I developed that, we really were always in negative gamma. This was during COVID time. This was during a lot of just a lot of high volatility times, and those hedges were very helpful. But then a couple of years later, the volatility started going down, and those hedging methods didn't work as well. So those are lessons. So take my videos over time, just test ideas that, I tested it. Now you can test it to see if it works for you. And I give a lot of different approaches, and I'm happy to share this direct data to help make it a little bit easier to understand how I come to the conclusions I do. I can't tell you how to trade because I'll never say that I'm the best of the traders doing overnight swing trading. I'm just the guy who creates the algorithms. There are people doing much better than I do. I mean, I've been doing very well lately. I mean, how could I not? Except I will say there were a couple days in the last few weeks where I decided to follow a different algorithm rather than the main algorithm. And everybody else made money but me. It happens. Stuff like that happens. So now let's do something else. Let's kind of experiment and kind of show you the different ways in which I approach this. So now let's say, let's take out all of the -2 and 2 days. Those are the days in which it's right no matter what, right? Because it may have started down and went up, or started up and went down. Those are what I refer to as my 2 - 2 days. A total down day would be -1, and an up day would be +1. That's how I score it along the side as I'm keeping track. Let's see what it says. And here are the results. And this, I think, really helps to secure the fact that I'm not leaning too heavily on the 2 - 2 days. Now, I will say in the past, some of my algorithms did better because of that. And when you took it out, it was still well better than 50-50, but it might have taken it down to maybe 65-70%. But correct. But the thing is, this has always been the case. I mean, each iteration of algorithms and adjustments and learning have made them just incrementally better over time. And so as you can see, it's really kind of the same scenario. I mean, all the way down to the pre and post war. I mean, it looks like this is 100%, but that's 4 out of 4. But it looks like there were quite a few ±2 days. But then we took those out, and now it's 100%. Let's go a little further. So pre-war total 87% with. I mean, it's only, these are small numbers, and so. But again, that's why we have to wait so long. That's why you have to wait 6 months. At minimum, a couple months worth of data to at least start to see if something, an idea may work or not. I've had ideas that really had great promise in the beginning, and then at the end of the day, maybe by the 40 trades is okay. It's holding together pretty well, and then by 60, 80 is just it's really just a flip of a coin. But this is not. And so overall, that including the war days, it's still 70%, and that's taking the -2 +2 days out. So that shows the days in which it was just straight up or straight down, no gimmies. There you go. So removing, it took it down about 7. I would say on average, and I think that more has to do with the wartime maybe, but I would say on average, the -2 kind of gives us an additional 5%, considering it's about a third of the days in which it does that. So anyway, I feel very confident in showing you these numbers, how this all works out. And let's experiment a couple more things. For example, so right now our neutral days are -0.75 and 7.75. So so the next prompt, consider all days in this next group, including neutral gamma days, which it looks like it would take out those days in some situations. Or again, sometimes when doing this, it will interpret the neutrals differently. It's something you just kind of have to keep an eye out for. Now consider neutral days as negative 0.75 and 75. So that's the number. So today was a 4 something. So really, when it's getting closer to that 0 point of positive negative, that's when we're going to just consider that neutral, maybe avoid those trading days. Let's see what happens. All right, well, it continued the 2 minus 2. That's not what I wanted, but I'll show you the numbers. So it excluded all the negative 7 plus 7s. And so here is, so the numbers are smaller, 65, this was 100%. Obviously we're only dealing with 60, 70 numbers. Now, let's see, okay, so pre-war, so these numbers go down a lot, but let's just taking a look at it, because this is a lesson learned. No minus 2 minus 2 filter. Out of the 130, only 84 were counted correct. So that's just that's 69%. And then the then the negative 0.5 meg. So that's not what we wanted. So we'll just say add back in. And the reason I do this, I want, the point being is that the minus 7.5 and 7.5 is not a good neutral day. We're losing out on a lot of healthy opportunities. Now only okay, so now we're just going to count neutral gamma days and see what it looks like. And here we go. So now we're using all the data, and it's looking even better. So people on the front page would actually probably not be doing as well. And see, that's good to know, because the members would have seen what that, like, for example, on Friday or Thursday, it said something like negative 0.74, 73, something like that. Well, we knew that was negative, but on the front page, it just said neutral. So it turns out that I probably should change the gamma to gamma, because it's a better result for everyone versus the minus 755. Now, how did I come up with that minus 0.755? Well, one, it worked before for, say, other algorithm combinations, and I'd often have that range. Sometimes it was minus 0.25 or minus 0.5. It would be different for different algorithm sets, but it's looking like neutral is truly neutral with the gamma scenario. So pre-war 88, that's exactly what I was excited about at the time, right? And then, yeah, all the numbers are better. Even the wartime numbers are better if we just used neutral gamma. So there you go. So now, and we have more numbers to work with. So this is how the discovery works. This is how and why I make the adjustments and changes on the site. And with more data, I make more choices. I think there's enough data here to suggest that everybody will benefit if I change the neutral to neutral gamma days. So when gamma is neutral, then everybody will see what that number is. Because quite honestly, the minus or plus, say the plus 4, I mean, that can determine a lot of pressure, but that doesn't always follow through in that way. In all honesty, it really does depend on plus or minus. Is it plus or is it minus? That's usually a bigger indicator rather than how positive or how negative it is. That's rarely, unless you are over, say, a 3 or a 4. Those ones seem to have some correlation to how much of a move the next day, but I don't have enough data to confirm that. So that came from other questions and going through the data. So here we are. This is what I do to continuously improve the quality of the overnight swing trade pressure reading at the end of the trading day. How you trade it, there's so many different ways. You can use leverage ETFs, you can use options, which I prefer, but there are different ways to use options. There are different techniques. And so you have to test. And I always recommend test using, paper trade. Just what would you do? Look for your trade, see what happens overnight, and just, don't go beyond your risk tolerance. Your risk tolerance is important because you want to, smaller position sizes mean you can stay longer. So, the war could have wiped a number of people out because you just couldn't play that overnight gap with confidence unless you were using a hedging system. And some people did very well. In my experience, I was probably break even to a little bit of a loss during that time. The bottom line is you can give two traders the exact same information, and they're going to have different results the next morning based on what they trade, when they trade, how they approached it, their risk tolerance, and of course, how well, do they have the nerves to hold on longer and to see if the market's going to continue to go their way in the morning or reverse. These are all things to consider, and I'm trying to create different tools to support those decisions. You have to make those decisions, but my job is to create as many tools that are helpful to help you make better decisions. I hope you enjoyed this video, give you a little insight into what I do and my next move. So when you see that the new algorithms are based off of gamma, you saw how it came about. I'll see you in the next video.